Good morning.
Good morning.
The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Make straight a path in the desert, a highway for God. Every valley shall be lifted, every mountain shall be made low, and the crooked paths shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. This is a statement that is taken from Isaiah, found in Isaiah chapter 40, verses 3 and 4. It is very interesting that this same statement is made at the beginning of the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth by the gospel writers, stating his purpose and what his ministry was all about. That the ministry of Christ is to bring man to a state where he can experience himself as he really is, a spiritual being with infinite possibilities. If you follow carefully the life of Jesus of Nazareth, you would find that it is a clear path from low beginnings to mountain high experiences, and finally to the liberation of the flesh or the material part of the mind to the spiritual part of itself. Every person, every one of us, is an individualized form of the whole. Now, what is the whole? The whole is spirit. I cannot see spirit. I cannot define spirit. But I can say to you that spirit is the substance or the essence out of which everything in the universe is made. I know that wherever we go, spirit is. Now, I can say spirit is like the wind. It comes and it goes. We don't know where it comes from, and we do not know where it goes. I could say that spirit is also like energy. It causes the lights. It causes movement. And then wherever we go, it is there. Now, if we are part of this infinite, enormous, unexplainable substance, we can call it by any name. And that's what we do. In the English, we call it God. But the word comes from a German root that means good. So when we talk about God, we're actually talking about that good substance, essence that is always present always with us. Paul in Acts, as he tries to explain it to the Athenians, he said, in it we live and move and have our being. That means there is no separation between it and us. It's like the fish in the ocean, depending on the ocean for everything. It is unlimited. It is formless, but has the ability to individualize itself as you and I. Within it, based on our understanding that it is total, it has qualities like intelligence. It operates by a law called love. That means all of us operate out of the same law called love. That means we draw our intelligence, our ability to form consciousness, to become aware, to perceive, to understand from it. Of ourselves, we can do nothing. It does its work through us. So this universal oneness could be seen as pure potential. And because we live and move and have our being in it, we are also aspects that have this infinite ability to create, to be, to come to know, to do, to expand, to grow. So, if we have all this potential and we are not growing, it means that there's a part of us that limits ourselves, that we limit our ability through our thinking about ourselves. Most of our thinking comes from other people who from the beginning of our lives have informed us who we are. And we have taken those thoughts from others to form the platform on which we experience this infinite gift that we have. Some people make breakthroughs early in life and realize that what they told them about themselves were not true, and challenge whatever was before them and grew. But a lot of us get cramped and stifled because we hold the thoughts and beliefs of others to be true. I'll go back to the statement, a voice of one that cries, prepare ye in the wilderness a path or a way for the Lord, meaning the Christ. So let's talk about the Christ a little bit. The Christ in man represents the God or the spiritual aspect of his consciousness. We say that mind is threefold. We say that in the beginning God created man. God being spiritual created spiritual man, which we call the Christ. That in us, that is spiritual. It holds the path. It sets the path. but we don't normally follow it because we have other parts of mind. So first we have the spiritual part of mind, and then we have the conscious phase of mind. In this conscious phase, we think, or we create, or we image. We have this wonderful ability, this wonderful gift, that we could start from non-material and create the material. We have this wonderful gift to see things in our minds that nobody else can see. Shape these images, reshape them, and then transform them to things outside of us through our conscious phase, the ability to think. In this phase, we receive ideas from the spiritual aspect of our being, from the Christ within. But in this phase of the conscious mind, we have the ability to reject what we see from spirit and make up our own stuff. The stuff that comes to us via the five senses, through what we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch. We have this wonderful ability to say to the Christ, crucify him. Get out of my life. I am totally into the outside, and let the outside run my life. And most of us do that. Most of us believe if I can't touch it, it's not real. If I can't eat it, it's not there. So we build our lives on the material, rejecting the spiritual. And then there's another phase of our minds that we call the subconscious phase of mind. Now, the subconscious phase of mind is like a reservoir. We put stuff in. It's a holding tank. So all the thoughts that we have, once we decide they are good for us, we put them there. And these thoughts become memory, they become beliefs, they become the building blocks for our attitudes and for our behavior. And after a while, this subconscious phase of mind becomes the ruler of our lives. This is where our ego resides. This is what we become. We become a program of thought patterns that we hold to be true. They run our lives behind the scenes. And sometimes some of the things that we do in our lives, after we have done them, we say, why did I do that? Habit. These thoughts and patterns of beliefs that we store in the subconscious build up mountains of resistance to change, to newness. They build up valleys of low self-esteem and low self-worth that we believe to be true. Some of us are still living out of our past. What they said of us, what they said of our parents, what they said of our tribe, we still hold those to be true. And they're all held in our subconscious. And every time we go to act, we act out of the subconscious without really thinking and being guided by the spiritual part of us. Hence, Isaiah says, to experience your full spiritual self, these mountains have to be lowered. These beliefs that hold us captive must be gone. We have to level these mountains, these powers and principalities that hold us captives in our own mind, traumatize us so much that we can't get on with the process of living. And sometimes we've got to go down into the valleys of our minds and pull ourselves up. Every man, every woman, every child was created first and foremost a spiritual being. You become what you believe you are. These have to be knocked out. The inconsistencies in your life, the false thoughts, the occasional maybes, these are like the crooked paths. Sometimes we good, sometimes we no good. Sometimes we depressed, sometimes we're frustrated. We have to knock these out of our lives. And then the rough places. All these thoughts when you are going through experiences, believing and that it's a rough time in your life, they must be gone. All these beliefs that we hold that stop us from really living in the moment must be gone. In every moment, you are the most beautiful person on earth, right here, right now. If you don't see that about yourself, it means you're regurgitating stuff from the past. Things that they have told you about yourself that you have come to believe to be true that are not true. They're subjective. Therefore, they're not true. If I am created the image likeness of God, and I am in that image at all times, therefore, I am always absolute good. Every mountain, every thought that leads to some power struggle in your mind must be lowered. And you have to come to a place knowing who you are and whose you are, always the same. We must not let the mistakes that we have made in the past define our lives today. We cannot let what they might have said about us yesterday or what we thought they might have done to us prevent us from planning a preferred future that is rich, that is happy, that is good and enjoyable to yourself, not to others. Every individual is responsible for his or her own development. If you feel stunted, nobody has stunted you. If you feel you can't do, nobody prevents you from not doing. When you decide not to do, you have made a conscious decision based on your past not to do. Has nothing to do with anybody else. Isn't that wonderful? Lifting up the valleys in our lives will take courage, will take tenacity, because all of us come from a past that may not have been preferred. But the beautiful thing is, right here now, you can build that path that would lead you to the place that you want to go to. And you have to do it by yourself. Is that wonderful? Isn't it nice to know that you have in your mind a bulldozer, a stone crusher, an earth mover, a backhoe, whatever it takes, you have it within you to knock down the mountains in your life. And to take that same earth from the mountains and fill up the valleys in your life. You have the power to take a bulldozer or a tractor or whatever you take to clear a clear path forward. This is who I am. To see no evil, do no evil, be no evil, only see good, and keep that path always open, whether it takes a snowplow, an icebreaker, keep it going forward to that point that you alone can see. You alone can do that. You are responsible for your life. The Christ in you is the way, the truth, and the life. For you to experience the spiritual life that you crave, the Christ is the only one that can lead you there. We have to make it our priority to create in the wilderness. The wilderness represents a whole host of undisciplined thoughts and patterns that we have that does not bring fullness in life. You know what the wilderness is? A bit of grass, some shrub, a lot of sand, a lot of scorpions, and every tree does not bear fully because it's scattered. It is time that you take your wilderness mind and transform it. Clearing out and nourishing so you can plant seeds that will grow in spirit and bring you fulfillment by following the Christ within you. It is that simple. You know, people have told us our role in life is to plan for after death. That's what they tell us. Where are you going to spend eternity? What about how are you living now? Are you happy and fulfilled right now? Planning for a future after death is pure ego stuff. You feel so important that you want to beat and cheat death. That's all it is. We spend time planning for the future after death and not spend enough time living right here now, debt-free, sorrow-free, full of happiness, full of peace and joy. It doesn't matter what you do right now. Be happy in it. Have no regrets. And stop planning for beyond the next moment. You are responsible for your own life. That is important. Our sole responsibility is to discover the truth of our being. That we are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual laws. Now, if that is true, then I need to submit to Spirit and let Spirit guide me so I could go forth and live a spiritual life. That means a life that brings me fulfillment. If I am not willing to do that, then I continue to experience the wilderness experience, which is hit and miss. Sometime I find an oasis of peace, travel and travel and travel, and then I get some dates of prosperity. Hello now. You know your life. I'm not. Wilderness living is full of hardship. It is without rain for months. Blessings from heaven, ideas that can lead you forward. Wilderness living is hard living. You've got to be careful where you pitch your tent. Wilderness living is dangerous living because the hyenas are after you and the scorpions will get you. The Christ life is a life that has to be lived solely under the guidance of that Christ ideal within. You know, we depend on our ego so much that when we have to do things, we consult it and we end up the same place that we ended up the last time. If you keep doing the same thing and expect different results, you're nuts. You're crazy. If you keep believing that a particular person in your life you can depend on and you keep getting failure out of it, you're nuts. If you believe that you can borrow and borrow and borrow and borrow, and there's no time of consequence, that is not being nuts, that is being crazy. There's a slight difference. You've matured. And some of us are sustaining attitudes and behaviors that continuously lead us back into the heartland of the wilderness. And when a new opportunity comes up to look beyond the wilderness and see an oasis of permanent joy, we look up at the sky and we see the sun, it's hot. That's too hot to make that trip. The same sun is affecting you in the wilderness. But the sky above and the mud below, we choose the mud because we are in it. So there's a statement, when you are in the forest, you can't see the trees. And we complain. And we complain. You ever complain about being in a mess and the mess wouldn't go away? The mess is in your head. There's no mess out here but God, good. The valleys and the mountains and the crooked parts and the rough places are in your mind, it's consciousness. It's your belief system. There's nobody outside of you who is setting out to bring harm to you. As written, repeated. Go ahead, Mr. Mackenzie. So without. That is a champion. He knows. Through practice, you come to know. Most of us go to church for the rapture. singing makes us. We get euphoric. And we forget our troubles. And by the time we get home, the wall appears again. And we can't wait to get back to church. The wall is not outside of you. The wall is within. Every valley shall be lifted, and every mountain shall be lowered. Ask yourself. What are the hard places in your life? What in your life you can't get over, you think you can't get over? What addiction that you have? And I don't mean to cocaine. I don't mean to marijuana. I mean, what habits rule your life to the point that brings frustration, depression? You know, sometimes you become addicted to people. Bad habits in your life that you can't get out of. And when you get out, you're mad because you got out. Be happy. Be happy for things that you have released. Make room. Make a way in the wilderness to find an oasis of hope that will bring you joy. One of the things we have to start also doing is not looking at the other people in our lives. Because all of us are individual consciousness. We form and shape our own life. You are where you are because of your consciousness, and so are other people. Don't compete with others or compare yourself with others. Waste of time. You have exactly what you deserve in your life, and so do they. If you don't like what you have, you can't change them. You begin by changing the thoughts that you hold to be true about yourself. See, it begins with you. When Jesus, it is said, resurrected, he visited his disciples many times after. See, the Christ, for the Christ to function fully, all of our spiritual aspects must be lifted up. And the one that we keep having trouble with is the one that allows us to perceive a preferred future. There's a difference, again, between what you believe religiously and faith. Religious beliefs are notions that you hold to be true, out of which there's ritual, there's practice, there's dogma that traps you in a cocoon and causes you to become impotent and not use the quality that I'm talking about called faith. We depend on the religious beliefs to plan our future, instead of using that quality in us that can perceive the mountain coming down, perceive the valley being lifted, can perceive the rough parts being straight, and to hope after them, and out of this hope cause your imagination to create ways to get it. But sometimes that spiritual quality called faith needs to be quickened, because sometimes it knows what it has to do, but sometimes it looks next door and sees somebody else and say, maybe I should have that instead. You ever been there? You plan your life. It's going okay. But you look over your shoulder and you see Sean playing music. You don't even know what do re mi is. Suddenly you see yourself like Sean, a star. I want to be a singer. Your voice is like when the corn comes off the husk. Raspy. And you were going good being a mason because you could chip rocks good. And you start to imagine money coming from singing. It's not for you. That is ego. That is not faith at work. That is ego. Ego looks around and sees, I could do that too. Of myself, I can do nothing. It is the Christ within me who directs me and reveals to me my gifts and my talents, and I follow Christ. Hello, plain and simple. To follow the Christ is to be on a constant path of tearing down and seeking to build up. In the story after the resurrection, after they had caught the fish and had a fish fry on the side of the river, smelling good, they relax. And Jesus turns to Peter and said, Peter, do you love me? This love does not mean emotion. It means, have you become one with me? Are you following me? Sometimes it doesn't matter how spiritual we think we are, we do not follow the Christ. But we tell other people we are. We get sanctimonious. You ever got sanctimonious? Believing that you're more spiritual than anybody else? You could put your hand up because we know who you are. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there? Sometimes we need to take a look at how we get distracted. He said, Peter got, yes, Lord, you know everything. You know I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Feeding my sheep means use your power to create a better life, Peter. Faith is the ability to perceive and to create beyond the appearances. Use that. Feed your ideas. Feed the ideas that come to you. Feed your thoughts. Grow them. After Peter had another piece of fish, Jesus said to him, Peter, do you love me? And you know, sometimes, when you are being called out, you know when you're being called out, eh? You know that. And you could pretend that everything is okay inside, but it's not. You ever been there? It's your fault. Who, me? Not me. And Jesus said, do you love me? Peter starts to get antsy now. You know how we suck our teeth. Well, you asked me that already. You know, you got attitude. He got attitude. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you feel people are picking on you and you're in a crowd? What do? What do? You roll up your eyes? Don't you do that? Not anymore. And you might turn to somebody and say to them, that man crazy, I don't know what he's talking about. Because he doesn't really know what I put out. And then Jesus says to Peter again, Peter, do you love me really? And Peter got angry. He says, why are you picking on me? What about the guy next door to me? John, what about John? Jesus said, if I wanted to talk to John, I would have spoken to him. Mind your business. Concentrate on your own life. Don't get caught up trying to help other people live their lives. You get caught up, Peter, in living your own life. Plan for a preferred future and live it day by day. Stop looking at other people, comparing yourself, and trying to condemn other people and wish other people are hauled out as you are being hauled out. Live your own life. It's very, very important to get this. The only one responsible for constructing your life is you. All the mess that you are in right now, you are the only person who could clear it up. And you are the only one must take all that stuff to the dump and leave it without looking back and wishing that I could have kept that drawer. Everything must be torn apart and rebuilt. If you want to build a new life, you can't keep anything from the old mentally. If you want to change, change means being new. If you want to be new, you can't go partially. It's all the way. No turning back. This is what Jesus is still teaching his disciples, that the way forward demands that you make a commitment to live a life that is free from pain and struggle by submitting to that spiritual part of your being that says, let's go on a journey, let's go on life, let's go living, let's go acting, being, becoming more and more. And you can't go with anybody. Well, what about Cousin Mary? What about my Uncle Ken? And what about those on this side? Can they come with me? No. When I call you, I call you. So the Christ keeps coming back Because sometimes the word that operates over and over in our experience is forgetfulness. We constantly forget who and what we are. We forget that we have the power over life and death in our hands. We forget that our tongue is the most powerful instrument in saying yes or no. We forget that. Every time you say yes, you open the door. And what comes in or jumps in is yours. When you say no, you close the door. Learn to use wisdom and understanding from your past experiences. Learn that when you have said yes in the past, things came in that you didn't want. And you spend years trying to get rid of. And they ain't going. Because parasites have the same motivation as you have. They want to live. And if it's nice, they're going to stay. Just like you. Parasite. Every valley, every mountain must go. Prepare ye in the wilderness, in your mind, a way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway, so that ideas could flow directly to you, not being taken away by your past beliefs. Stand firm and know that your life depends on you and you alone. You know that, but it's a choice you have to make, whether you want to be happy, to be fulfilled, or to continue to live in the wilderness. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? Do you like the thorns and the thistle? Do you like the scorpions? You like the pestilence that happens at night? Do you like that? Or are you contented now? That you've beaten yourself up so much and convinced yourself it's okay, but it's not. Have you done that? Every day is Resurrection Day. But Resurrection Day does not mean Ascension Day. Resurrection means you have realized the past and you're trying to give it up so you could ascend to that place and find fulfillment. Life is worth it. Life is worth it. I've been doing this work now for 28 years. On the 24th of the month, I was ordained a minister. And sometimes I have to go and take myself out of the wilderness so I could dream again. When I began this center, taking the leadership, I had a prospectus that included not only the center as we know it. The motto was from birth to transition. I wanted to have a school for young children. I wanted to also have a place that, as people become mature and couldn't take care of themselves independently, a place that they could go to. It is still my dream. Over the past years, in order to keep this idea afloat, I've had to be so many things in a single minute. I don't want to live that way anymore. So I see a new heaven, a new earth. For the old earth and the old heaven passed away. I'm going to rekindle that dream for Verity. Verity must be beyond this. We are little children, through all ages, could find peace and joy and fellowship at all times. I want you to help me move us from where we are to where I know we can be. If you're willing to help me, come with ideas and come with a willingness to work to help this dream live beyond you and myself. God bless.
Just clap your hands like this, just clap your hands like this, And the people of God say, yeah. And the people of God say, yeah. And the people of God say, yeah. And the people of God say, Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. This is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. That the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice.